Hey folks, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about, in our second of 3 mini lectures, we're going to talk about a few elements of employment law. Some of those elements that you as a future business owner, business manager, or even an employee may need to know and may find useful in your jobs. Okay, first thing is that California is an employment at will state. So what does an employment at will state mean? It means in the state of California, the employer can fire an employee for any reason. Except an illegal reason. So what's an illegal reason? For example, you may have a contract, and if you fired them, it would be a breach of that contract. That employee may be a whistleblower, and if you fire a whistleblower, it's against the public policy of California. Or, for example, you may fire the person because of their race, their religion, their ethnic origin, their sex, or something like that. That also is an illegal reason. But in general, you can fire up an employee for any reason except an illegal reason. All right? And most of you would guess what illegal reasons are. You know that. And the employee can quit at any time for any reason. The employee does not have to stay working for an employer. You can't quit, of course, if you have a contract. Then, of course, again, just like the employer, it would be a breach of the contract. But otherwise, the employee can generally quit at any time. At any time, can quit their job and leave and find another job, okay? Now, a couple of other things. We want to talk about non-compete covenants, okay? In California, it is illegal for an employer to try to enforce a non-compete covenant with an employee, except in the context of the sale of a business. If you sell a business, you can have the owner of that business not compete with you for a period of time. But you can't have your employees not compete with you. It is unenforceable in California. And for example, I think it's the only state where that is the case. Most states' non-compete covenants in employment agreements are okay, but they're not enforceable in California. If you have a non-compete covenant in your employment agreement, don't worry about it. It's not enforceable. If you're an employer, don't put it in there because it's not enforceable. So, non-compete covenants in California are not enforceable, okay? Now, I want to mention, under employment law, I want to mention something about overtime. In California, non-exempt employees must get overtime. So, that raises the question of what's an exempt employee? Exempt employees are employees that make at least two times the minimum wage. And in 2019, that was about a little more than $49,000 a year. So an exempt employee must make at least two times the minimum wage. They must be an administrative executive or professional type of employee, and they must exercise independent judgment. If you're an employee that meets these three criteria, you are an exempt employee and don't get overtime. But what is overtime? Now, under U.S. law, overtime is greater than 40 hours a week. But under California law, it's greater than 40 hours a week, greater than 8 hours a day. So if you meet either one of these, you get overtime in California. Under U.S. law, you only get it if it's over 40 hours a week. And the U.S. law says it's either U.S. law, or if a state is stricter than the U.S. law, then state law controls. So this is what overtime is. And overtime is 1.5 times the wage that you're getting, and it goes up after that. Exempt employees do not get break time, and they can work at all hours of the day. They can work at home. They can work many hours a week as they want. So, but non-exempt employees get overtime over 40 hours a week and over 8 hours a day in California. One other thing that we need to talk about in the context of employment law is workers' compensation. So what is workers' compensation? Workers' compensation is a system of insurance to help employees with on-the-job injuries. So if you get an on-the-job injury as an employee, the employer must have workers' compensation insurance so that the insurance system will pay for your injuries, or perhaps even pay for disability, or in some cases, death. So workers' compensation is a system of insurance. Now, there's a deal between employers and employees. The deal is that employees get insurance for on-the-job injuries, but the deal is they give up the right to sue their employer give up the right to sue the employer for on-the-job injuries. So if you get hurt on the job, you get the insurance, but you don't have a right to sue. And it is illegal, and it is a crime for an employer to have employees and not to have workers' comp insurance. I once had a client that didn't have workers' comp insurance, which I didn't know at the time, but he was accused of a misdemeanor and was facing jail time for not having workers' compensation insurance. So make sure that you have workers' compensation insurance if you have employees. Okay, that's a small segment of employment law, and it's worth a whole year's worth course, or more maybe, in law school. But that's all we have time for this year. So anyway, I'll see you next time for our last lecture. Thank you.